Aiming in a first-person shooter game is a mix of three things: reaction speed, muscle memory, and sensitivity, which this video will be focused on, specifically in Warzone Mobile, which, as a matter of fact, is the sponsor of this video. If you guys want to download the game, definitely make sure to use my link down below in the description. Simply put, sensitivity is the relationship between an input, like a swipe of your finger on the touchscreen, to how much your aim or camera moves inside of the game. Getting good sensitivities is primarily about finding that balance between having them low enough to be accurate while still being high enough to react fast and track fast-moving targets. So basically making sure the other two parts of aiming are being optimized. The first place you should start with getting your sensitivity settings correct inside of Warzone Mobile is deciding whether or not you want to play with fixed speed or with acceleration. Let's go ahead and dive into the differences of the two to help you make the best choice for your playstyle. First, fixed speed is all about consistency. Your sensitivity will be the same no matter how fast or how far you move your finger on the screen. On the other hand though, speed acceleration adds a variable element to how your camera rotates. With this setting, the faster you move your finger across the screen, the faster your sensitivity becomes. The problem with acceleration is it's almost impossible to know how much you'll actually turn, since controlling the speed your finger moves accurately is very difficult. You can learn the game Speed Accel from tons of practice and muscle memory building, but it's significantly harder to perfect the muscle memory compared to fixed speed. So why would you use Speed Accel? In Warzone Mobile, you'll get engagements across a variety of ranges, so sometimes you'll need low sensitivity to help with accuracy at longer ranges, and sometimes you'll need fast sensitivity to track faster targets or flick. Speed acceleration lets you get the best of both worlds, but again, at the cost of a consistent sensitivity that's easier to memorize. So, what do I recommend? For me, I've always been an advocate of fixed speed so I can build consistent muscle memory, especially considering different games have different levels of acceleration, so fixed speed allows me to carry my muscle memory from game to game. Also, Warzone Mobile allows you to customize your sensitivity based on your scopes, so I can dial in my sensitivity to be higher or lower based on what I'm using instead of using Accel. Granted though, I do play on a tablet, so I have a lot of screen space to utilize. For people on smaller devices, I completely understand using acceleration. What I would recommend is using fixed speed along with the techniques that I'll explain later in the video, but if you still feel like you can't get your sensitivities right, you could definitely try using speed acceleration. Now let's go ahead and get into your actual sensitivity values, starting with the core setting in which all other settings are based on, and that's your horizontal sensitivity. This is your sensitivity that directly affects your rotation from left to right. My philosophy for this sensitivity is the same across all games. You want it high enough to be able to turn on someone directly behind you, while not being too high that you sacrifice precision. The way you can find out what this value looks like to you is to hop in a game and do a full, but comfortable, swipe of your aiming thumb or finger and adjust your sensitivity until you can consistently and easily do a 180-degree turn. It's also totally fine or even preferable if you do it a little bit more than a 180-degree turn. Also, you want to make sure that you can do this both to the left and to the right, because this gives you the ability to turn in any direction in one swipe comfortably. For me, this value is 45. It likely will be different for you though. Next is the vertical multiplier. As the name implies, this is the vertical sensitivity, meaning when you're looking up or down. The way that this works in Warzone Mobile is it's the multiplier of your horizontal value, meaning if you have 50 horizontal sense and a vertical multiplier of 1, basically your vertical sensitivity is also 50. But if your vertical multiplier is 0.5, then basically your vertical sensitivity is 25, which is 0.5 times 50. For vertical sensitivity, I've seen plenty of pros, especially on tablets, going lower to about 0.75. Typically, I would want to say that you want to keep it at 1 to have consistency, but I do believe that the mindset for having it lower is that it allows you to put your horizontal sensitivity a little higher for easier turns while keeping good vertical tracking and accuracy. Also, a theory I have is that your finger naturally moves down as you track horizontally on a screen, so a lower vertical sensitivity helps compensate for that. My recommendation would be to go around 0.8 and lower or increase based on how your vertical tracking feels. For controller sensitivities, I don't have too much input here since I don't actually use a controller. I would just go with something like 7 and 7 and then lower or increase based on whether you undershoot or overshoot your aim, but these do not affect your touchscreen sensitivities. Next is the global sensitivity multiplier. This setting only affects things if you do have ADS sensitivity per zoom off, which I don't recommend anyways. If you do want to keep that setting off though, basically your sensitivity per scope will be your basic sensitivity divided by your scope zoom, then multiplied by this global multiplier. So you can increase it to increase your ADS sensitivity across all scopes, or lower it to do the opposite. But again, I recommend putting this setting on so that we can adjust each level of zoom individually. Speaking of, let's go ahead and talk about the individual zoom sensitivities. First, these sensitivities can be a little confusing to know what sites they do affect. This video would be way too long if I explained all of them, so a general tip I have is that if you're unsure, you can crank one of the sensitivities all the way up and then ADS to see if the sensitivity is crazy fast with a specific site. If it is, then the sensitivity is linked to that specific site that you're using. Most scopes should have their zoom in the name or the stats though, so you can easily match them up. Now, these sensitivity multipliers can range widely based on device and playstyle. I personally play with them a little bit lower, but again, your goal here for each sensitivity is to get them fast enough to track any engagement you'll be in with that specific scope, while still being low enough to be accurate. Feel free to copy my values and then again adjust accordingly. You can obviously test out these sensitivities in gunfights, or you can ADS at a random target at about the range you imagine using the scope at, and then see how easy it is for you to precisely put your crosshair on that target and also switch to other targets. Go ahead and pretend some random objects are enemies and then ask yourself, can you control the recoil on those targets, and can you switch your aim to a new target quickly and accurately? Hopefully at some point we'll get a training room to make this process a little easier. With Warzone Mobile being so diverse in the ranges you'll fight in, it can be tougher to get a single sensitivity that's perfect for all situations, but there is one more setting to cover that I think is very underrated for helping ease this issue, and that's transitionary timing. Basically, this setting just dictates when your sensitivity will switch from your first-person basic sensitivities to the specific site sensitivity that you have. The three settings are instant, gradual, and after zoom. Jarvis, please explain these settings.
Of course, sir. The instant setting means as soon as you click the ADS button, your sensitivity will switch. With gradual, between clicking the ADS button and the ADS animation completing, the sensitivity will gradually switch. And finally, after zoom means once your scope is fully zoomed, your sensitivity will switch. I highly recommend using the setting after zoom.
Thank you, Jarvis. I'll explain from here. With after zoom, we can lower our scope sensitivities to stay more accurate, and then if we need to make a large camera movement that requires higher sensitivity, we can un-ADS, which will switch your sensitivity instantly because now you're not fully zoomed. This little trick allows you to have very low sensitivity on high zoom scopes, but if you need to quickly rotate, you can un-ADS, change your aim, and scope back in quickly. Now that you have your sensitivity settings at a good starting point, it's really just about playing and making some adjustments to get them more dialed in. Again, if you notice yourself shooting behind where people are moving to, increase your sensitivity. And if you're overshooting them, go ahead and lower it. Or if you have a tough time lining up your reticle on target, you can also lower it. But I will say, you don't want to constantly be changing your sensitivities. Aim is largely based on your muscle memory, and to build that muscle memory, you need to stick with a sensitivity and learn it. So I would say when you're at the point of not knowing if you should put a specific sensitivity up or down, that means you should keep it at where it's at and just practice it. So that's going to be it for my sensitivity guide inside of Warzone Mobile. If you guys enjoyed it, let me know down below, and also drop any tips you have for viewers or any opinions, or really just use the comment section as a place of discussion. But again, hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you later. Peace.